everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well if you're watching this on the weekend. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the transits for the week ahead. We've got a lot of stuff taking place. Mercury's going direct. Venus is going to be changing signs. We've got a Sun-Uranus conjunction. So there's definitely a lot taking place in the cosmos. I hope everybody is doing well coming off of that heavy Scorpio lunar eclipse. Sending you guys lots of good vibes. I am actually taking that period off. I'm filming this in advance so I can properly relax over those transits. Let me know how are you guys feeling with that. If you guys are new to my channel, do me a favor, make sure you click the button below, make sure you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when I have videos coming out of the channel. We're here every Sunday doing astro weather. We've got new moon reports, full moon reports, lectures, and all kinds of stuff in between about other transits and retrogrades. And 2023 is just going to keep on rolling. If you guys saw some of my other videos, I talked about how the bulk of the intensity of this year is really going to be April through August. So if you guys are needing some guidance, you guys can always catch me here on Fridays. You guys can get readings. If you like my content, please make sure you're subscribed, like I said, to the channel, and do consider joining my memberships because I'm going to keep putting out this stuff for y'all. So let's go ahead and dig right into it and see what we've got going on. I'm going to take you guys day by day for the next week and touch on some of these aspects. As a reminder, since this is the first astro weather for the month of May, if you guys haven't already checked out your horoscope for the various 12 rising signs, please do check that out. Those are live on the channel as well. So I guess really the big news today is Venus moving into the sign of Cancer. So those of you guys who are native, Cancer, Sun, Moon, risings, or a natal Venus in Cancer, definitely a much more pleasurable time. It's a nice break. Also, we're going to see throughout Venus's transit through the sign of Cancer for the next 3 weeks, some very harmonious aspects to placements in Taurus. We're going to see some sextiles. So we're going to have support coming from those fixed planetary energies, providing more emotional support and nurturing. We're also going to see some really nice aspects between Saturn and Neptune throughout this transit. So it's very spiritual, very emotional, and helping us all kind of get a little bit more cozy and comfortable when it comes to the home front. So definitely take a look at where Cancer is in your chart. Those of you guys who are Taurus or Libra placements, you're going to feel this a little bit more strongly because Venus obviously is your planetary ruler. So Venus will be moving into Cancer as of today on the 7th. That's really the big aspect. Something else that I noticed is right when Venus moves into this particular placement, she's going to come into or start coming into a sextile with the North Node. Recently, when Venus was in Gemini, it was making a sextile to Jupiter. So we're still picking some of that energy up, but it's nice to see the ruler of the North Node in harmony. And we'll feel like the next couple of days we're really building and feeling more emotionally sound. More pleasure, better socializing opportunities. Now today the moon is going to be in Sagittarius when we wake up. Kind of some funky energies because the moon obviously is not going to be friendly with Saturn and Pisces. So, now we have to be more mindful during the lunar transits for really the better part of the next 2.5 years as the moon is going through Sag, Virgo, or Gemini, that it's going to come into some squares with Saturn. So it's kind of checking itself. For the most part, this is going to be happening early in the morning. So when you guys are waking up, it's already coming out of that square. But I'm also noticing, looking at the sextile taking place between Venus and the North Node, it's making a focal point to the moon. It's creating a yod. And so we know that when planets, quincunx, are in conjunct each other, they're trying to reconcile something. And I believe that even though the moon in Sagittarius is forming an disharmonious kind of aspect with Saturn, it's really kind of saying like we need to remain positive and optimistic even in the face of some things that are going on in the world right now. We're going to obviously start to lose that once the moon goes further into Sagittarius. But if you happen to be up early in the morning today and you're just kind of feeling like, man, there's all this stuff that's kind of breaking down, like questioning security, know that the moon in Sagittarius is really picking up the energy of Jupiter, which is about optimism and a very what can I do type of attitude. For the rest of the day, we're not going to see too much stuff going on. The moon's going to continue to keep moving through the sign of Sagittarius. And then this is going to take us into Monday. And as we see overnight on the 7th, there will be some trines briefly to Chiron, but most of us are going to be sleeping, so we're not going to kind of pick that up. But that is giving us the opportunity to be more optimistic, like I said, about what we can do, and feeling a little bit more self-assured and proactive. So then we get to Monday, the 8th. And as we're waking up in the morning, the moon is still in Sag. It is starting to form, there we go. It's starting to form a square with Neptune. So first we see a moon square Saturn, okay, on Sunday, which is like a little bit more challenging to communicate or maybe express. There can be a sense of feeling like we're questioning our optimism, we're questioning our emotional security. And then we have the moon come into a square with Neptune. So that can be having us kind of feel like not totally thrilled with our environment, not knowing what's going to happen next, questioning what is going to change next, especially because this is a mutable square. Now, very shortly after that, the moon is going to continue moving through Sagittarius, and it's going to come into a trine with Jupiter, which is actually pretty positive considering that Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So in the afternoon, things kind of pick up. They become a little bit more optimistic with that trine. And we're going to be feeling that really all afternoon until the moon makes its ingress later in the day into the sign of Capricorn. So depending on where you are in the world, let's just say the PM hours, sometime like around dinner time, the moon will make its ingress into Capricorn. I do feel like we are going to feel this, okay? Because it's an out of sign square, but it's still picking up the energy of the square where we have Venus in opposition to the moon, which could have us longing for something, needing something more, right? When the moon goes into Capricorn, we feel the emotional heaviness of responsibility and work and showing up and getting things done and being on time. So like I could see some people working later on Monday evening or feeling kind of the push and the pull between outer world expectations and career related things and, you know, what we need when it comes to the home front. Now this will be coming into a slight square. It's just short of about 3-4 degrees with Neptune. But I do feel like this is going to bring up challenges revolving around if I'm doing too much of this, how can I do that, right? If I'm working too much or working overtime, or if I'm having to clock in or clock out or work 2 jobs, or, you know, just how much stuff we have to get done, how do we get home, Venus in Cancer, take care of the kids, take care of family, like make dinner, cover our emotional needs. And then the squares to Neptune is going to have us kind of feeling like we're swimming in the cosmic soup. It will be quick, like once the moon starts coming out of the opposition with Venus in Cancer in the evening, it gets easier. And we're still picking up that energy of the moon trine Jupiter. And we're also going to see in the evening the moon coming into a trine with the North Node. And over the evening, we're going to see it trine Mercury. So I want you guys to observe what's going on Monday night in your life. Be about solutions, not about complaining about problems. Try to find ways to better manage your time, especially because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. We've got Saturn that's actually going to start coming into a sextile with the moon. So rather than kind of spiraling about, oh my goodness, how am I going to handle everything? Take a moment to take a deep breath, reflect, and then ask yourself, okay, what is my intuition telling me? Or what feels like it needs to come first? Or what changes or sacrifices do I need to make? And that will kind of help you through it. And like I said, over the evening, the moon will continue coming into a trine with the North Node, which is nice because the North Node talks about where we're going collectively. And the North Node in Taurus is what physical actions can I take? Where can I find that I can work, you know, harder, or I can make physical shifts or reorganize things, which is a huge theme because we have Mercury in the sign of Taurus, which is retrograde currently. Now, the moon does not do so hot in Capricorn, okay? Because it does, like I said, feel this, it has this weight of emotional labor and, needing to really kind of just work through the emotions and work through the feelings. And I want you guys to take note where in your life that's not working. Even if it's not like going to work, if it's working through something, not acknowledging, emotional feelings, not acknowledging what needs to change, you're going to realize that that's not going to work. And you really want to work with the moon coming into the trine with the North Node and Mercury and learn how to communicate what's difficult, learn how to communicate what's challenging, and also learn to accept or let things go that you cannot control. Something that I have found myself saying a lot to my clients is like, not my circus, not my monkeys, right? I know that sounds silly, but I keep telling my clients that because I'm noticing that a lot of people are picking up on the static of other people's crisis. Is it the, eclipses? Maybe. Is it the retrograde? Possibly. I think a lot of this is coming from the fact that, Pluto just stationed retrograde. And when outer planets station retrograde or direct, we start to see the energy of that planet kind of reverberate out into the world. So we've got a Scorpio lunar eclipse hosted by, Mars in Cancer, which is very emotional, and a Pluto retrograde that just started. People are really going to be in their feelings and be coming to some realizations about things that must end. And Scorpio is messy. That's just what, that sign kind of does. It is meant to bring up this like crisis, but also it's about catharsis and being able to kind of finally clear and work through things. So as we're going to bed on Monday night, I'm hoping that you guys are being proactive about what you can release and what you can let go, and being mindful of all the baggage that you might be taking on that may be from other people, and learning to rework the way that you look at what you're willing to feel like is your responsibility or perhaps even your burden. Now in the background, we're seeing the sun come into 18 degrees of Taurus on Monday. The exact conjunction is not going to be until Tuesday. But I want you guys to know that Tuesday, in my opinion, there is a lot going on. So if you're listening to this and you're working with your weekly calendar or your planner, just put a note around Tuesday the 9th for expecting the unexpected, okay? Because that's really the theme of what's going on here. You guys have heard me talk at length about how these eclipses that we had in Taurus and Scorpio are very much about finances. You guys have heard me talk about how Saturn in Pisces is not just about everybody doing this collective spiritual work, but it's the actual dissolving of structures that are not solid or are fake, right? Saturn in Pisces is this very like emperor has no clothes moment. For the banking system, I think we're going to see this throughout the next couple of months. Also for structures within government and society, we're also going to see it in hidden spaces, like things that are going wrong within the prison system, things that are going wrong in hospitals, and also in organized religion. So it's not just limited to just like, oh, the government is bad. It's any structures within society that are functioning in ways behind the scenes, like everything is good, but behind that veil of Saturn and Pisces, we're going to find out that there is just like complete panic. And we're going to hear more about this because of the Mercury retrograde as well. So even though Mercury is still retrograde at the beginning of the week, it's getting ready to go direct. And when Mercury goes direct, likely we're going to hear more about some of the stuff that's been going on with some of these bank collapses. No surprise that some of these, there's news coming out this week about some of these banks where we're hearing about insider trading information that, people at the top may have already known that things were going to start to kind of crumble, pulling money out of their accounts or, moving money to other banking institutions, and had an idea that some of this stuff was going to kind of, fall apart. Purely just like textbook Mercury retrograde in Taurus, because you guys have to keep in mind Mercury is going to the underworld, receiving all this information that was hidden, bringing it back up to light, and then as soon as Mercury goes direct, he's going to be like, here you go, here's all the facts and here's all the documents and here's all the insight. So something you guys might notice on the 8th and on the 9th, because of the trines that we're going to see from the moon to the North Node and Mercury, and then a Sun-Uranus conjunction, is likely there's going to be more of this information kind of coming to light. So you might be waking up in the morning on the 9th and you're hearing some of this stuff. All right, so let's take it to the 9th, which will be Tuesday morning. And we got a lot going on this day. So I'm going to keep reminding you guys of this kind of like really heavy 18 degrees. last summer, right? North Node Mars Uranus conjunction, 18 degrees of Taurus, happened at the end of July, beginning of August. You may see similar themes kind of reverberating out around this time because it's reactivating that degree. 18 degrees is health, service industry issues, anything in regards also to service industry, health, what else? It's a Virgo degree, so it can be things in regards to scheduling, stuff in regards to accidents. And when the sun comes into contact with Uranus, it's not an unusual transit. It happens once a year, so you guys can go back in time the last few years that we've had Uranus and Taurus and look at when the sun has made this conjunction. Ultimately, to put it very simply, Uranus wants to set you free, okay? So whenever we see a Uranus conjunction in transit or even in the natal chart, it does represent the sense of like rebellion and kind of smashing through things that's been holding it back. Now, obviously, Taurus wants peace. It wants stability, consistency. It just wants to kind of show up and grind out the work and get paid and then be done and be able to kind of have its pleasure time. So it's not as thrilled coming into conjunction with Uranus, which already is very destabilizing. And I think what we're going to find is for just a multitude of different reasons, this is going to be rather intense. I do think we'll see other waves of this when Uranus hits that degree as well, once it's gone direct over the next couple of weeks. If you happen to be a solar chart, so if you're like a Leo rising, or even if you're like an Aquarius rising, you may feel this transit much more strongly. Equally, if you have any personal planets, 17 to 19 degrees of Taurus, I would pay attention because it's reactivating that conjunction we had last year. And it can represent actual earthquakes, things that collapse, things that fall. And we know at this point with astrology, sometimes it's literal, like we'll see the earthquakes and we see the volcanic eruptions, or we see the building kind of fall over, but it can be figurative in a sense of Taurus is banks, right? And it can represent another collapse that's coming. I've looked into some of the fixed stars and some of the transits, both for May and for June, and I'm very confident that we're going to see a lot more bankruptcies. I'm very confident we're probably going to see a more prominent financial institution start to have issues that people may not necessarily have expected. I'm not speculating which one. I have a feeling that's what's going to go down. And I do think that we may start to see flashes of this with this conjunction on the 9th. Now, if you're a fixed sign other than Taurus, so if you've got Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius in your chart around this like 16 to 19 degrees, just pay attention because you might be feeling this here as well. And there's other things going on in the skies that are supportive. So it might be when we start to feel the pressure, but the bend and the snap may actually come a little bit later down the road. Outside of that conjunction, which is going to have all of us feeling like we need to break free, or that there is a breakdown, or that there is something that happens that makes all of us realize like, wow, this is a real problem. We've got, like I said, some supporting aspects. So for starters, the moon is in Capricorn, which is already bringing our attention to business, government, politicians, anything in regards to superiors out in the world. And the moon will be trining Mercury. So there is going to be some news likely of, political figures or government, institutions coming out and talking about, hey, this thing is happening. This is our plan. This is what we're hoping to do. Do we hear more about interest rates? Maybe. Do we hear more about what certain government structures are intending to do to step in to help support some of these situations? We may hear more also about just general concerns that the public is having about some of these banking collapses and needing more reassurance that everything's going to be okay or that our assets are going to be protected. When the moon trines Mercury, it means that we're able to kind of really open up about our emotional insecurities, and Mercury is retrograde. So there is a sense of, oh, everything's fine, but not getting the complete story. At the same time, we're going to see that the moon, like I said, is in a sextile to Saturn. So there is a sense of like maybe hearing out in the world, don't worry, it's fine. There's safety nets. Like there are things in place. So that way, you know, if for whatever reason there's challenges, you know, we will make sure that your money is FDIC, you know, protected or whatever. You may hear that there's like these invisible safety nets. And that's Saturn and Pisces. We're also going to have Venus that is starting to come into a sextile with the North Node. So I wonder if this is going to be hearing more about property, land, real estate, yeah, like the real estate market. Not so much commercial, but I do think we're going to hear more about residential throughout some of these aspects. You may hear more people kind of talking about mortgages and loans and encouraging, which I think is so crazy. I mean, I know that charts and graphs can be manipulated, but I was looking at some of the numbers from the 2008 collapse that we had, or like the market, you know, breakdown, and looking at the billions of dollars that were essentially lost as a result of like all the bad mortgages and everything that went south in 2008. And then looking at the numbers from the banks that have already kind of collapsed just recently in this last year. And the number of, the amount of money that's been lost is almost twice as much as 2008, which for me was like mind blowing. I was like, how is this possible? Why are more people not talking about this? Why is this not an issue or an area of concern? So I think that we're going to see more of this breakdown. And it's very likely that this is when we start hearing more about this push and these incentives that are being created to encourage people to buy or, you know, get involved in real estate. I'm not a real estate advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an economist. I can just tell you guys that with some of the transits that are going to be happening over the next couple of weeks, as we see Jupiter come into Taurus, Jupiter does deal with wealth. And Jupiter will touch on the North Node. So for some people, depending on your astrology, there can be some really amazing alignments that can bring wealth into your life very suddenly, okay? But for the most part, Jupiter conjunct the North Node coming into a square with Pluto is where we're really going to see more wealth transfers, even more of a wealth divide. I think we are going to see that some people who have already been lucky enough to kind of arrange things in a way that has set them up for financial success are going to see opportune moments to make even more, perhaps on the backs of things that are kind of crumbling and falling apart. So, you know, just be cautious and be careful if you're really thinking seriously about going and getting a mortgage or buying a car or things like that. Like read the fine print because Mercury is retrograde. Be mindful of the interest rates. Be mindful also that economically, when we see squares between the nodes and Pluto, or when another planet like Mars, which will enter Leo soon, starts coming into these configurations, we see major shifts. We also see the likelihood of some kind of war or some kind of combative situation. So that can also affect the markets depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks. We're still going to be feeling the Venus in opposition to the moon. So be mindful that there is a sense of, you know, superiors coming out in the world and being like, this is what we're trying to do to protect you and protect your home and this and that. But the question is that are things really protected and what is the cost? Because everything will come eventually at a cost. We're seeing now years down the road after the pandemic and, you know, all of the checks that were cut for everybody who got their $600, that plus the shutdown of the economy, just how rocky things have gotten over the last couple of years. So once again, 2 or 3 years ago, not a lot of people would thought that, but now here we are, and that's just another thing that's kind of aiding you know, or adding to some of these economic challenges that we're having here in the United States. So the moon is going to stay in Capricorn the entire day. We're going to see it trine Mercury. So if you have to chat about something, communicate about something, talk about what you need, I recommend doing that. But be mindful that Mercury is still retrograde. So it's a time to ask questions, not necessarily make commitments. The Sun-Uranus conjunction is going to happen in the afternoon. I'm watching for explosive news or information that comes out about more banking issues. I'm watching for stuff relating to health because of that 18 degrees. I'm also curious to see if there is going to be earthquakes or if there is going to be some kind of rock slide or something that is explosive when it comes to the earth or weather. And the moon's going to keep moving through Capricorn into the afternoon. The sun is going to pass Uranus. It'll leave that conjunction. And we're going to see the sun and the moon in a trine into the evening. So things are flowing, even in spite of some other stuff that's going on. Things are still kind of flowing. So that can be a day where we can work through things if we know how to really ask the right questions and discuss what it is that we really need. As we're coming into the 10th, so this will be Wednesday morning, we're going to wake up in the morning and the moon is starting to come into not just an opposition with Chiron, that'll be much earlier, but if you guys are up early, you'll feel it, which can represent some hurt feelings and some wounds revolving around our issues with work, career, superiors, and honestly, just taking things personally. And we're also going to see the moon come into an opposition with Mars in Cancer, okay? So what you'll feel for most all of the morning into the afternoon is the moon coming into a square with placements in Aries and an opposition with Mars. Slow down, take your time, be mindful that people can be impatient. There can be a sense of people getting agitated. Those of you guys who have placements in the signs that are cardinal, in particular, I want to say 22 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs. Pay attention because you're going to notice that this T-square is going to activate some stuff within your natal astrology, especially, really everyone, but Libra, pay attention if you have any placements around there because you're going to be the missing piece to this cardinal square. So you're going to feel like there's things changing in 3 or 4 different areas of your life. Cardinal squares can be active. So the fact that Jupiter is going to be the focal point of this square tells me that it's going to turn the volume up really loud. And Jupiter in Aries can make us very brave, courageous, but reactionary, self-centered, kind of risk-taking, moving too quickly, too fast. And when you have Jupiter in a Mars sign and Mars in Cancer, there can be a sense of not thinking things through and acting out very strongly and emotionally. And yeah, just watch for that throughout the afternoon. We're also going to start to see the moon come into a sextile with Neptune and Pisces. So I do feel like there is a sense of needing to lean into listening to our intuition, sometimes needing to take time to step back, take a breath, think things through, meditate, rest, sleep on it before we make a significant decision. In the background, we've got Venus trine the South Node, and I talked about in my Venus in Cancer video how this is about tapping into inner knowledge, the inner awareness of sometimes love is setting something free. Sometimes it is saying, I don't need this anymore, or I'm going to let you go, or I'm going to walk away from this relationship, or I'm going to give away this object. And what you will see happening throughout the rest of the week from Wednesday on is the Venus transit harmonizing with the South Node in Saturn. And so for some of us, it's the burdens and the responsibilities of relationships and love and the sacrifices that we make for the people that we love. For others, it's going to be about connecting with, elders and people who have wisdom and have, knowledge and experience far beyond our years, and really connecting with people who can kind of help teach us how to move through some of these changing times. For a lot of people, a Scorpio eclipse does bring, right around the time of the eclipse or, weeks out, grief, pain, the feelings of loss and having to finally say goodbye to someone or something. It can be some heavy stuff. So when we have these water trines, hydration, taking baths, taking a walk by the beach, going for a swim in a pool, using a sauna, things that are going to really be incorporating the energy of water, that element, but also spending time in it alone or time to reflect so we can detox, release, cry it out, kind of let it go. So if you have access to any of that stuff, I really recommend that throughout this transit, really throughout the entire week, to be honest with you. And it may be something that you end up picking up while Saturn is in Pisces and you end up doing it for some time. So we're going to watch the moon continue to keep moving through Capricorn, and in the evening on Wednesday, the moon will come into the sign of Aquarius and conjunct Pluto. So it's weird that we have like this buildup where in my mind, we start to see the square to Jupiter where things get loud and the opposition to Mars where things get confrontational, and then boom, something conjuncts Pluto. I'm also thinking about the fact that, you know, this is the breakdown that we're having. Once the moon goes into Aquarius, this is the third quarter square. So we'll have about 2 days, the 10th really through the 12th, where we see the moon go through Aquarius and come into a square with Uranus and Pluto, Uranus and the sun. So this is still Scorpio eclipse lingering, right? Because that eclipse was hosted by a Pluto retrograde. What happens when moon conjuncts Pluto? You know, the common people fear or feel change, or there is a breakdown, or there is something that is getting lost or that we're having to kind of let go of. Obviously, you know, Aquarius is ruled traditionally by Saturn. So we're going to see more perhaps when the moon comes into contact with Saturn, but the modern day ruler is Uranus. So it's still picking up the pieces from the Sun-Uranus conjunction that we saw a day earlier on the 9th. So I think this can still be, you know, the crisis response to whatever kind of blew up or what was happening in the world on Tuesday. As if that wasn't hot enough, this is really going to highlight the transiting nodes coming into a square with Pluto. It's within about 3 degrees now, so we're really feeling that pressure point. When the moon comes into a square with its own nodes, it represents things that happen, fateful events, changing of times, changing of moods or feelings, which help us shift from the past, okay, where we've been, what we're acknowledging, what we no longer need, and helps us shift more into the future of creating some physical change. So the truth is that as much as this sounds heavy, at least in my opinion, I have really been watching when the moon goes into Aquarius. Because I've been using that as a marker for here's the crisis, what's happening, what's at hand, and then I watch when the moon goes into Taurus. Here's how I lean into making the change. Not only because the North Node is where we want to go, but more so because this is exactly 1 square away from Pluto. So here's the crisis, here's how we respond to it. Get back in the body, eat well, move around, work with the element of earth. I encourage you guys to do that. That might help you when you start to see events come up out in the world for the next couple of months where you're like, okay, I know that the moon's going to make that connection to Pluto. Now, pretty soon Pluto will be in Capricorn. So you'll have to know when it shifts back into that sign next month. But get into the habit of tracking the moon. It'll really help. Watch for the crisis point that can come up. Likely it's going to be about money, resources, and physical things. I'm also noticing that Uranus is now hitting new degrees. It's hitting 19 degrees. So it's now shifting into the third decan of Taurus here pretty soon. I'm going to do a video on that this week and talk to you guys about how things are changing. And it's like very like a yeehaw energy, especially when we see Jupiter come into Taurus. So we're going to see opportunities for exponential growth. And growth can be a good thing, or it can be where we are growing in ways that is not beneficial and it's not serving our highest good. Especially the darker side of Taurus can be materialism, hoarding. It can be spending too much, eating too much, focusing too much on self-pleasure. So we're going to be talking about that a lot when Jupiter goes into Taurus, and really looking at how much is too much and is less more, and does it make sense because we want all of the things to be willing to make the sacrifices and take the higher interest rates and be willing to pay the higher monthly payments and, you know, all the prices that are going up, and do we just pay them, right? Talk about that more when we start to see that transit. But yeah, watch for the Moon-Pluto connection. Know that it's just not the intensity that, it's the fact that it's squaring the nodes. And you will see then going into Thursday, so this will be on the 11th, Moon's going to keep on chugging along, and it's coming into a square in the morning with Mercury retrograde. Just a thought. I think with Pluto going retrograde, we're going to hear a lot about power issues, giving our power away, where power is being abused out in the world. But because the Sun conjunct Uranus can be about electricity, and because we're going to see the Moon conjunct Pluto come into a square with the North Node in Uranus, I'm watching for like internet outages, power outages, major electrical failures, glitches, things like that on the 11th because Mercury's getting ready to station as well. Just reading an article, I think it was yesterday or today, that's like saying like now New York is banning gas stoves. That's very Pluto and Aquarius. It's like that was a power. Now we're taking that away, the retrograde, and the squares to the nodes obviously is for environmental reasons. But I think we may hear more about this, where there is changes that are happening where groups may not feel like they have the power to choose, you know, what food they buy, where their food comes from, which, you know, sources they want to get their power from. And we're going to hear a lot about how there's going to be taxes involved because Pluto does talk about taxes and where certain prices of items are going to be going up. But I think this will be the breakdown day. So cars, vehicles, gadgets, all that stuff, we can see some issues. Also problems with trading platforms, right? We know that when shift is hitting the fan and money is going in or out of the market, there are going to be a lot of people trying to make these transactions and all that stuff at the same time. So if you happen to be working, especially with like crypto exchanges and things of that nature, please be very careful. I mean, any exchanges, just make sure you're mindful of what you have on your exchange and what you're possibly moving in and saving on wallets or setting everything up for your buy or your sell orders. Okay, so later in the day on the 11th, you know, other than the square that we're going to see to Mercury from the moon, we're going to keep seeing the moon move through Aquarius. And yeah, it's going to be more so the next day. But the moon is going to get up until about mid degrees, right around 15 degrees. And then most of us, not all of us, most of us are going to be going to bed. So we'll be waking up in the morning on the 12th. So this is now going to be Friday. And when we wake up in the morning, this is also a little bit of a disheveled day. This is officially when we have the 3/4 square. Okay, so this is going to be now when the moon is kind of breaking down, kind of clearing things out as it goes through Pisces and then Aries before we come into what will be a new moon in Taurus. That's going to be, I think, somewhere around the 19th. Anyway, so once again, fixed signs, right? They don't like squares. I think of it as like grinding of the gears, especially when the moon comes into a square with the sun. There's a feeling that everything's discombobulated. Things don't go according to plan. We're also going to see the moon come into a square with Uranus. So it's this feeling of just the emotional kind of upsetting or the home changes or things of that nature that are kind of happening. And it's really important because the ruler of Uranus, the ruler of the moon or the dispositor is Uranus. So see how many ways I'm tying this back to the Sun-Uranus conjunction? It's going to cause static all week. So, things get a little rockier towards the end of the week, obviously. That's when it does get a little bumpy. In spite of that, something that we're also going to see is that Jupiter is going to be hitting 29 degrees on the 12th. So if you guys remember the eclipse that we had on the 19th of April, that solar eclipse, that was a solar eclipse that I said to you guys would play out for many, many weeks and months. The first trigger point for me is when Jupiter hits 29 because it's amplifying the energy of that particular eclipse. So if you go back and you look at what was going on around the 18th, 19th, 20th of April, now here comes Jupiter saying, hey, I'm going to make it bigger, or I'm going to bring that up again, or I'm going to add more kind of fuel to that particular topic in your life. On one hand, Jupiter is becoming visible. So he's going to start showing you what was not really shown or what was, to be unveiled after the eclipse. But we've also got Pluto inching closer and closer to the North Node, which is wanting to push everybody collectively towards doing more of this North Node work. So we'll actually see Jupiter go into Taurus mid this month, come into contact very closely with the North Node, and that's ruled by Venus. And we've got Venus in Cancer, we've got Mars in Cancer. So we may see dramatic shifts revolving around what people are doing with or around their home. I think of Venus in Cancer as ways to nurture and protect the home. I think of, people who are saying, well, we're going to start a garden, we're going to be baking our own bread, we're learning about food preservation, we're talking to families and getting information from our family about, like where we should be living, or, what we should be doing to like really feel safe and secure at home. And I hope you guys are having these conversations with your family and your friends and your roommates and your neighbors, because this is going to be really important, because we're going to start realizing that safety and security is not limited to purely just our family and our home. It can be collectively with other people. So I have thought for some time that some of these transits throughout Taurus, we're going to start creating more community gardens and teaching people more about cooking and preserving at home, and bringing people together. So I think that's really the lesson here. Anyway, so while all of that stuff's great, Jupiter is still coming into a square with Pluto. And so, sweet and salty aspects, right? In order for there to be growth, it's like the growth is coming from this pressure or these fear tactics or these evil global, overlords that are, sending people into a bit of a tizzy. And I'm going to keep reminding everybody on this channel that you have the ability to create change. So much of what is happening right now is like Morpheus in the Matrix, where he's like, do you want the blue pill or the red pill? And once you take one of the pills and you go down the rabbit hole, there's no coming back. And there's some truth to that with this. Are we going to see society go deeper into Pluto and Aquarius, where we're all wearing headsets, living in the metaverse and eating bugs in a small apartment in a 15-minute city? Maybe. I don't know. That's not my reality. But some people are going to go deeper into the North Node and Jupiter in Taurus, which is going to be, there's plenty of land, there's plenty of opportunity. Wealth is something that everybody is capable of having, but wealth is also redefined. Wealth is your health, it's food, it's stability, security, and eventually the right, I think, that individuals have to being able to have these things. And so I don't agree with a lot of the narratives out there that we're all doomed and that humans are bad and that we're just kind of raping and pillaging the earth. I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of things we could do differently, but I think less people is not necessarily the answer. And I don't think that shutting down the ability for people to have access to resources is the answer either. What you guys are going to notice is just a lot of very serendipitous crisis that's going to play out over the next year or two, where issues are created for solutions to be handed. And you can take those solutions if you choose to. That's your choice, but know that it's going to be painted and kind of dressed up in a way that looks really pretty, because it's going to be more convenient. Okay? And so what Taurus teaches us is that it doesn't always choose what's most convenient. I think Taurus gets a bad rap for being lazy, right? And that's really not true. Taurus is the first fixed sign of the zodiac, okay? They're responsible for laying the foundation. They're the ones moving all the boulders and the blocks, and they're doing all the heavy lifting, likely because they're being told that there is ice cream at the finish line, okay? They are incentivized by food or pleasure or money, but they do the work. They do the bulk of the work, actually, for the rest of the zodiac to build off of. So Taurus teaches us slow and steady wins the race, the willingness to kind of plan and have structure and be consistent, and also really love what you're doing and adding an aesthetic touch to what you're doing. And Aquarius is like, we can push a button, we could do this thing, and the screen comes up, and then there's all this like virtual reality, and then a robot brings you your Uber Eats delivery, and it's just, and it's all convenient and it's fast, right? It's all AI. So you're gonna see things start to become so different. So we're gonna see so much contrast. We're gonna see some people that are gonna be like, look at me, I'm making my own butter and I just bought a cow and I have a victory garden, and that's gonna be cool. And you're gonna see some people that are going to be opting to, kind of ditch paying a mortgage or paying a rent and, live in communal spaces and travel and do all of these things. And I'm never gonna talk badly about what people decide to do. I'm just gonna let you guys know that you want to be careful for being offered solutions because it's convenient. And that there is something with that North Node and Jupiter in Taurus that is so beautiful and so fulfilling in knowing that you are able to build it, create it, or do it yourself. So self-sufficiency is going to be a big theme over the next couple of months. You guys are going to see where that actually pays. And that may actually bring you guys freedom, financial freedom, right? Self-sufficiency, learning how to build it yourself rather than buying it at IKEA. learning how to revamp and change and transform old furniture or materials, or building your own homes, or learning how to grow your own gardens, and like really getting out of the matrix if that's something that you guys really want to do. All right, so as we move through the 12th, we see Jupiter hit 29 degrees, reactivating that. We're going to see the discombobulation from the moon square Uranus and the sun. We see Mercury and Taurus form a sextile to Saturn, which I like because that's very much tuning into our intuition, getting insights and being able to utilize the information that Mercury is giving us to better plan. Such an amazing day for vision boarding, sitting down and just really listening to your intuition and tapping in terms of what action or what steps to take next. I think a lot of people are going to be doing this post some of the financial rumbles that are going to happen over the next week and go, yeah, just something doesn't feel right. I'm going to sell this stock, or I'm going to move money from this thing or that thing. And if those thoughts come up for you, please listen to them. Okay. I'm saying this because of the sextile to Saturn, because Venus is sextile Mercury. This might be a day where you're like, I'm at the store, I'm going to buy some extra food to throw in the freezer, or an extra, bag of dog food, or, I'm going to stop by the ATM and pull, $50 out and just hold on to it. It sounds silly, but these thoughts may come up for some people, and it might actually be something that can, give you a little bit more added security. Then on the 13th, which is Saturday, we're going to be waking up, and the moon is going to be in Pisces. And the moon is going to come into contact with Saturn. So that's kind of like, serious, a little bit more isolating, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more private. But it's trining it's trining Venus, which I like. And it's also picking up the energy of the South Node. I think I spoke about this in my Venus in Cancer. I talked about the 2 times that Venus is going to make some really prominent aspects to planets in Pisces. This was one of them, okay? So you'll see it like the 13th, 14th-ish, Venus trine Saturn, commitments, really being able to make sacrifices for the things and the people that we love. It can be amazing for making big decisions about home and family. It can be an amazing time to spend time with older relatives and commitments to older relatives in like long-term home or emotional planning. But I look at this and I go, wow, Saturday is such an amazing day to be like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to light some incense. I'm going to, take a long shower and then maybe do some yoga and sit and reflect on, where I see my life going and what I'm committed to, and just really being dedicated to a spiritual practice that's about bettering the home, bettering the emotional body, being more available for the family, like that kind of stuff. And maybe just spending the morning doing that, and then you can go about your day. But I really like that. Typically the moon Saturn is not a great aspect, but because Venus is going to trine this throughout this transit, it's really significant. You'll see this again down the road in early June when Venus comes into a trine with Neptune. And when Venus trines Neptune, the moon will be in Scorpio. So we're going to see 2 grand water trines when Venus is forming aspects to planets in Pisces involving the moon. Very, very, very spiritual days. Go check out that video if you guys haven't already seen that. Later in the day, we're going to continue to see the moon keep moving through the sign of Pisces. Looks like it's going to cross Saturn right around midday. And that's pretty much it that's going to be going on that day. And then we're going to be waking up on Sunday the 14th. And the moon is still going to be in the sign of Pisces. And we're starting to see another pickup here with Mars coming into a trine with Neptune. Now that's not going to really kind of set up until more so next week, but just know you're going to be feeling that. Mars is about the direction that we're going in, our drive, our energy, our action, our vitality, passion. It's in the sign of Cancer. So a lot of us are feeling really reactive emotionally or protective of home or family. But what I'm liking is that the moon is coming into conjunction with Neptune, which is very peaceful. And the trine to Mars is like, peaceful resolution. I think maybe being able to find ways to kind of unite emotionally and be on the same page with other people in terms of what our goals are. There is a way to have peaceful protests. There is a way to have peaceful conversations in the midst of conflict. So what I think about Sunday is still a very spiritual day because of the moon in Pisces and now the connection to Neptune. But when it trines to Mars, it's like, finding ways to be able to connect with other people where maybe there's been some tension and kind of go, hey, I think we both, want to kind of iron this out and make things better. At the same time, Mercury is getting ready to station, and it is at 5 degrees where it will go direct, conjunct the North Node. So we're still having fateful conversations, right? Mercury still sextile Saturn. You saw on Saturday that the moon was in a sextile to that. So if you've been holding back and having conversations and talking about things, this can be a wonderful day for resolution. And I really love Mars and Neptune in harmony because it's about being in alignment with your purpose and the drive and the direction to get there. But it's in water signs. So it's not about taking action physically. It's about taking action emotionally. It's about doing the work intuitively and having a little bit of like a sense of vision for where you're going to be going. And then we will start to see the moon come into a sextile with Uranus and the sun. Okay, so it's closing, but this is like the last friendly aspect that you're going to see between the moon and the sun before we come into the new moon in Taurus. So as we go throughout the day on the 14th, the moon is going to keep moving through Pisces. Mercury is very slow, and I believe it's late. Yeah, on the 14th, on Sunday, that Mercury goes direct. Hallelujah. Mercury goes direct at 5 degrees, and it's when the moon conjuncts Neptune. I'll go as far as saying this. I have a feeling that for some people with this going direct, with the moon Neptune sextile to the sun, with that trine to Mars, some of you guys may go to bed on Sunday night being like, okay, like I need my answer. I need to make a decision, or universe, send me a sign. And you may have a dream or something that's very direct, and it kind of just tells you like how to move forward, or it gives you some kind of closure, or it makes you become acutely aware of something. If you've been waiting, if you're like a stickler, right? Obviously, this is going to be in the PM hours late that this is going to go direct. But if you've been waiting to agree to something or start something, if you really have to, you can do it on the 15th. So that's going to be, the following Monday. Or you can wait until Mercury makes a more positive, harmonious aspect. Another option is going to be if you're needing a specific date. You can wait until the moon comes into conjunction with Mercury, because the moon is going to be exalted right around the 17th of May, or you can wait until after the new moon that's going to be in Taurus, which is going to be at 28 degrees. So you could do that on the 19th. So if you want to do it on the 15th, you can. There's other aspects and other dates that would be better election dates for signing contracts and agreeing to things. And next week is going to be an interesting conversation, because we're going to be talking all about the changes that are going to be happening with Mars and Jupiter going into Taurus. I guess I kind of briefly touched on that in some of my other videos, but Jupiter going into Taurus is also going to be a very big energy that's coming in. Some of you guys who are a little bit more astrologically sensitive are already feeling this. But that will be more so next week. So we're going to be talking about that more so on like the 16th and the 17th, just short of this week's astro weather. But if you're looking for content on that, I do have a Jupiter in Taurus video that I put out. Some people have asked, not everybody has seen it, but if you guys go and look at my playlist, I did like a several hour long 2023 presentation, a free webinar where I talk about the biggest trends for the year, Saturn and Jupiter changing signs, the nodes changing signs, and then I take it through the 12 signs. So if you guys missed that, you can check that out. I'm also putting together a webinar right now that I'm going to be doing on the Venus retrograde. So I will still do a video on it. I'm not going to give you guys all the secret herbs and spices, though. I'm going to save a lot of it for the webinar. But as many of you guys know, Venus will be going retrograde in the sign of Leo. It will be just absolutely, it'll be very loud because it's going to be tracking with Mars. It's going to turn retrograde in conjunction to fixed star Regulus. It's going to square Uranus and Jupiter. So it's going to be just wild. So when I come and talk to you guys about Venus going through the sign of Leo, I'll do a video on that later this month. I'm hoping to have my page ready. So if you guys want to sign up for my webinar, you can. I'm planning to have it sometime in June, but it'll be really in depth about stuff that's going on in the world, what we can be expecting in relationships, ways to work with the Venus retrograde when it comes to love and soulmates and money and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to put that together. I'm calling it the Cruel Summer because that's what it's going to be. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, stay tuned. You can check out my website. I recommend people go on my website. The links are down below at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Sign up for my newsletter because, well, I say newsletter, it's technically my email list. I'm not going to spam you. I don't send anything out regularly. Only when I have a webinar or a course, that's when I send an email. So if you want to be alerted as to when that comes on sale or when I have other sales for any of my online courses or webinars, please check that out. I think we've got like almost 700 or 800 people now and it's growing. So it's great to see that. I will be back on Tuesday and Thursday this week. You guys know how it goes. I have more videos throughout the week. We will also be doing live tarot readings on Friday. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll post the link on my community tab if you guys want to sign up early. And if you want to join memberships also, level 3 membership is going to get a reading once a month included in the membership price. If that's something you guys are interested in. Please leave me your comments below. Sharing is caring. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And we will be back at it with some more astrological videos on Tuesday. I'm wishing you guys all a happy week ahead, a happy Mercury direct. And let's see what the next week has to offer all of us, okay? Until next time, we'll see all of you guys very soon. You guys take care.